All right, there still appears to be some questions over what's due this week. So let's go over it. And if I'm done, when I'm done, if it still doesn't make sense, please ask again. All right, first of all, I talked with Evan. What I've decided to do, these extra exercises, we're going to do all those as a class. You don't have to turn them in. You don't have to worry about doing them, period. In fact, this morning, what I did, I've already done the ones for chapters 4 and 5. I've done these 5 exercises already. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do those with you tomorrow. All right, I've changed around the way we're ordering, in which we're doing things. What I sent you this morning, I built, I built the whole thing, but I ripped out the code and I just sent you the interface for each one of the 5 projects. Plus, I put in there like the exit routine because they're the same on all of them, and that thing where we can print a message box. So I'm going to go over each one of those with you tomorrow. You can fill in the code. You can watch me do it. Whatever is the easiest for you, feel free to do that. But these extra exercises, I had those in there originally as homework. You don't have to do them. So those, don't worry about turning them in or anything. So what do you have to turn in for Friday? First thing that you have to turn in, we did this kind of as a class, this wine glass thing. That was the chapter 1 lab. That was the only thing that was in there, the only program. It was called wine glass or something like that. All right, so that's first thing. For chapters 2 and 3, and again, we worked on many of these together, but you were supposed to do this thing where you did the console program for kilometers per mile. So that's the first one. Second one, you were supposed to do this thing for the raise. And again, yours may not look perfect, and that's totally fine if it does not. All right. Third, calculating that grade point average. All right. And fourth, and I don't care really this one, like I said, I'm not a fan of this program. I don't care whether you turn that in or not. Okay. So, do you understand what you're supposed to turn in as far as labs? Does anyone have any questions? You do not have to turn in this stuff that's at the beginning, these terms to review and this stuff like these naming conventions. You don't have to do that. That stuff was put out there on the folder that I gave you, and I've tried to at least go over the major talking points or the major terms, etc., with you. The other thing that you are to turn in are those written tests for chapters 1, 2, and 3. So again, for Friday, by the end of the period tomorrow, what you are to turn in are first, the written tests for chapter 1, chapter 2, and chapter 3. Second, the wine glass program for chapter 1. And third, this kilometers to mile program, this percent raise program, and the average grade program for chapters 2 and 3. Are there any other questions on that? Anything? Does it make sense? All right. Then, now I talked to Evan electronically, but we've talked. And he said, no, you are to assign all of these. And even though there's about 10, but just give me a second here. Because let's look at what these labs are. So the first one, again, we will go over this. We can go over these terms. That's fine. Many of these we've gone over already. But what is this? So these are all GUI programs, I believe. Write a GUI program that converts between miles and kilometers. You've kind of done that one already. The logic shouldn't be that different from the one that we did in chapters 2 and 3. All right. Second, each number, this thing with eggs. All right. So 127, as it says right there, if you had 4 chickens and they laid this many eggs, there'd be 127. Well, how many is that? That's 12 and a dozen, so that's 10 dozen plus 7 eggs. Now, what will help you with that problem is one of the ones we're going to go over tomorrow is one of the ones I talked to you about earlier, and that is, let me show you this. I'm not trying to confuse anybody, so if I am, I apologize for that. But the ones that we will go over tomorrow, this calculate area and perimeter, then this accumulate test score data, then this calculate factorial. This one I actually gave you all the code because it's very short and it's very confusing. All right, but we will go over that. This calculate change is very similar to the one I just showed you with calculate the number of eggs. So if I put in 68 cents and I want to give it the biggest denominations I have, 2/4 would be 50 cents. So I'd have 18 cents left. Adding another dime would make 8 cents left. Adding a nickel would make 3 cents left, and that would be my pennies. So we will go over that program tomorrow as a class. All right? We will also go over this one. And I disagree with one of their answers, so either I did something wrong or they put a wrong answer in here, but it's no biggie. So again, I just want to show you this, what you have. Let's see, where is it? These are the completed ones. But what I'm going to show you, so you have in here, this is what I emailed you this morning. First, here's 4-1. I'm not going to run any of these. But that's the first one, length and width. So you put in 10 here for the length, you put in 10 here for the width. It'll give you 100 for the area, all right? And it should give you like 40 for the perimeter. That's the first one that we'll do. Okay, then we'll go to 4-2. Let me close this. And this is the one on test score data. So if I put in 5 tests, if let's say I put in here 100, then this will be a 100 for the total. There's one student and the average will be 100. If the next person gets a 50, so that'll be 50 there. This will be then 150. There'll be 2 students and the average will be 75. Does that all make sense? So we'll go over that one as a class. Then we will do this factorial program. It's very short. All right, that one won't take any time because I'm just going to say, hey, you've already got the code. Let's just take a couple minutes and go over it. Then we will go over what I just mentioned, and that is 5-2, not 4-2, where is it? There it is, the one with the change, and that's this one. So then we'll do that one. And finally, we will end up with doing the one for 5-3, which is this one. All right. You've got the interface for all of those. You don't have to turn these in. My goal tomorrow in going over this with you is I want to make it as easy for you to understand as possible. All right. So those are the ones that we'll go over tomorrow. As far as your homework then, what you will have to do for next week, like I said, you've got this first problem here, which is very similar to the one that you did, the kilometers to miles or whatever the heck it is, but now it's GUIized. Second, very similar to that change program, but it's how many eggs. So you've got to add these 4 up, divide it by 12, and then modulo it basically. All right, it's not difficult. Next, another GUI program that calculates projected raises. Does this look familiar? This is basically the one that we looked at, and we did it in a non-GUI format. All right, so we did it as a console program, so there shouldn't be anything new there. That's all of them for Chapter 4. Any questions? Anybody? Please ask. I'm not offended, I'm not mad or anything, okay? Next, Chapter 5. Again, we can go over these terms. It's not a problem. Again, you do not have to turn in these handout things that are here, but you do have them. All right, so what are these? This one, write a GUI program that determines eligibility for college applications, and they give you what the requirements are. Followed by that, you put in a number that represents a temperature, and it will tell you if it's a wind or wind speed. If it's at a certain speed, it's a hurricane and what category it is. Okay. Then finally, you do the equivalent of an unbelievably simplistic rock, paper, scissors game. When we get to that point, where maybe after about chapters to the end of this section, all right? So maybe when we get to chapter 11, I don't know, we'll build a pretty good rock, paper, scissors game that'll have the fist and the paper and the scissors, etc., and you'll be able to play it. We'll do that as a class, all right? Hopefully that's not one of the ones assigned here, because then I shouldn't have said that, but I haven't looked that far ahead in the future. All right, any questions then on this one for chapter 5? Anything, so please ask. All right, and finally, the last one that's here, and that's 5 new. Again, don't worry about these handouts. This says write a console app that accepts an indefinite number of test scores and then computes some statistics about them. So here, notice we put in some scores. And when we get done, we get the number of scores, the sum, the average, the low, the high, etc. And I think the reason that Evan is having you do these, Evan or Paul or whoever wrote these, is when we get into chapter 8, we're basically going to rebuild this program using arrays. We'll do that as a class. All right? So that's the first program. Second one is non-GUI. So they want you to take this program you just did as a console and redo it as a GUI. Once you get to that point, don't redo your logic, because the logic is the same regardless of whether it is console or GUI. So you should be able to grab tons of your code. All right? Then this, what is it here? Write a console app that tracks the home sales of 3 salespeople. All right? And I'll let you put that stuff in there. Okay, I'll just let you read through it rather. And then redo it as a GUI. So do it as a console, redo it as a GUI. All right? Finally, this one is probably the hardest. So again, so my question for you is, do you understand this work plus the written test for chapters 4 and for chapter 5? Those will all be due next week, Friday. So a week from tomorrow, meaning the 29th. All right? Since tomorrow, I'm going to be spending quite a bit of time going over those exercises from the book, the ones I gave you, the shells for today. That's going to be, for lack of better words, your pretest. All Monday next week and all Tuesday next week are going to be labs. That gives you, hopefully, tons of time to work on this. Wednesday, when you come in here next week, on Wednesday, you will take your next hands-on test. Now, Evan is doing it differently than me. He was good enough to send me his syllabus. He's going right from chapter 5 to chapter 8, and then he's going to backtrack and do 6 and 7. I'm not going to do that. There's nothing wrong with what he's doing. There's nothing right with what he's doing. And I'm just saying that's the way he decided to do it, and that's totally fine. All right? But to me, it makes just as much sense to come in here and go over how to code methods and event handlers. We've already covered a lot of that stuff. All right, and you're going to get more of it tomorrow. And then how to handle exceptions, and validate data. We've been doing validation already. But I want to show you another way that you can validate, and that's using what's called a try-catch or a try-catch finally mechanism. It may not make a lot of sense to you. Don't worry about it. But I'm going to do 6 and 7. We're both doing the same stuff. It's just like you three, most people who come in here and take courses, they take course 1, then course 2, then course 3, then course 4. You guys will be taking course 2, then course 1, then course 3, then course, or no, you will actually take course 2, then 1, then 4, then 3. And don't worry about that, because that's exactly what Angie's doing. All right? When you start in the second semester, because I'm the only one who teaches in this program. And so, so next fall, the only thing that's going to be offered here is the first class and the third class. These three will be taking the third class. You guys can't take it yet because prereq for the third class is the first and second. So you will take the first class. Then the next semester, all that's offered is the second and the fourth. You're already in the second. So the fourth one, you will take that one, those out of turn, so to speak. And then in fall, not this coming fall, but the one after that, you'll take course 3, and then you'll be able to graduate in December. Does that make a little bit of sense? All right. And I got asked a question. I don't know if it was one of you in here or if it was in the, with somebody else. I don't remember. But what do they do here for summer school? And, notice we're not overflowing here with our number of people. So they're not going to offer program courses in the summer because then I'm competing against myself for the fall. So they're not going to do that. All right. So I volunteered already. I said, well, what if we taught a course like in Python or something like that? That's not part of the program. What if we did that? And they said, good idea, but no. And I said, why? And they said, because the majority of students here are on aid, and aid typically won't pay for courses that are over and above what's in the program. So in other words, you'd be taking it for the knowledge that, well, that's typically you won't get funded for that. So they're not going to do that. All right. And it's a battle I've been fighting for 5 years since I came here. I mean, Mr. Corrigan listens. He's a great person and a great boss, but his hands are somewhat tied too. And I understand where the school is and how it is with that. Now, the school I worked at in Wisconsin, probably less than half the people were on aid. So we did run classes in the summer and I taught different things. But summer is the time you can do one of two things. First of all, if you feel that you're good enough, let's say at the end of this semester, you three here, I really get C#. I can write really good programs, etc. Then you might want to look and start looking for companies around here that use C#, contact them, and see if any of them would possibly be interested in having an internship. All right. Now, depending on your situation, your finances, etc., they're going to be a lot more apt to want to do that if it's a free internship. All right. But programming internships are hard in the summer because you've got 2 or 3 months, and usually it's a good month to get somebody up to speed. So that's why a lot of places don't do it. All right. So any questions on first, what's due on Friday, or second, this next assignment? This is your time to ask. Anybody? All right. Sorry I took up 20 minutes of your time, but the rest of the period is yours. Monday will be lab. Tuesday will be lab. Wednesday we will have our test on chapters 4 and 5. If you get the work done early and you get ahead, start looking at 6 and 7 if you want to. All right, and look at what's going to be the homework on there, because people will say, well, I already got this homework done. What should I do? Well, you shouldn't sit here and twiddle your thumbs. All right, there's plenty of stuff to do. All right, thank you.